Hello there guys, what is going on? SonOfChelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're all doing well and keeping safe on this Sunday. Talking in today's episode about Tomori, his loan move to AC Milan reportedly agreed as per Fabrizio Romano. We'll get into that straight away. And will he be returning to Chelsea in the future, because there is an option to buy in that deal. So the last of Tomori, did we see it against Morecambe last weekend? We'll get into that. And also talking about Mason Mount's heroic performance last night, scoring the winner for Chelsea. And also Callum Hudson-Odoi as well, really impressing at the moment for Chelsea. But before we get into any of that good stuff, if you're looking for Chelsea daily content, it's on this channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. Also, do me a favor on this Sunday by hitting that like button, because it helps out the channel as well. So let's start off with Tomori. Frank Lampard a week ago was speaking about Tomori's loan and Chelsea looking to loan out the defender this month. Rumours started circulating about the potential destination for Tomori this month. It seemed pretty recently that it was going to be a Premier League loan to, say, Leeds or West Ham. He was very close to joining West Ham in the summer on loan, but pretty soon it became clear that AC Milan was going to be the destination, the only real potential destination this month. And Fabrizio Romano, who's been on top of this throughout the recent days in terms of reporting on it, always so clear with his information and usually very good and accurate with it, reporting today, literally as I was about to record this video, that Fikayo Tomori is set to join AC Milan from Chelsea. The agreement is expected to be completed next week on loan with a buy option, no obligation, around 30 million euros. Tomori will fly to Milan in the next few days. Here we go soon, those famous words. And I just want to reference this article from Simon Johnson, who talks about this potential option to buy in the deal to sign Tomori on loan, and sort of how it's been used before by AC Milan for another Chelsea player on loan, Timothy Bakayoko in 2018. The season-long deal for the France midfielder had an option worth 35 million in it, but the Serie A club didn't trigger it at the end of the campaign. So bear that in mind, and a lot of Italian clubs do this with loan deals. A lot of clubs do this generally. It doesn't always mean that there'll be a permanent move at the end of the season, but you think about Tomori's talent and the fact that he could break into this side, get a lot of minutes and impress. His potential is massive, and the fact that, you know, AC Milan looking at that deal, the reported fee around 26 million, could be seen as a massive steal away from Chelsea in the coming years, given where Tomori could end up. So the question I want to pose today, is this the end for Tomori? Was that cameo against Morecambe the last time we see Tomori in the Chelsea first team? I hope not. Frank Lampard was adamant that both Tomori and Loftus-Cheek have long-term futures at Chelsea. I do always wonder when listening to managers in press conference around transfers, you know, they're always so coy, and saying stuff like that probably helps protect the fee and sort of the value of Tomori. If Frank Lampard admits he doesn't have any future, you know, clubs will try and capitalise on that basically. I think it's just very important that Tomori, just for now at least, the next 6 months, goes out and gets some football. The concerning thing is that Chelsea were quite willing to let this option in, and the fact that we've heard so many reports that Tomori himself would be happy to move on, because he clearly sees the writings on the wall. And we're not at Cobham as well. It's not only looking at Tomori's lack of game time under Lampard in 2020 and even obviously now moving into 2021, but maybe at Cobham as well, there's more friction there. We've always spoken about the fact that Tomori was such a key part of Lampard's team at the start of 1920, and then it changed when Rudiger came back in. And the fact that Frank has consistently shifted around his back four, at least last season, and Tomori spent a lot of the time on the sidelines, even recently when he changed both defenders, and seeing he's not even third or fourth choice for Lampard is really concerning. I think for his own sake and for his own career, he needs these minutes, and I think it's a brilliant club to go to. I'm always excited seeing English players going out on loan, especially abroad to foreign leagues, seeing their development there. I think it can really help them in terms of being a more cultured player, seeing a different style of play and really challenging yourself. You know, I think the Premier League, sure, he could have gone to West Ham, he could have gone to Leeds, they would have been decent loan moves, but I think it's just, hopefully it will develop him more as a player. But whether he has a long-term future in Lampard's team, I think, is a massive question and a massive doubt very naturally. And, you know, you do wonder, when I hear all these reports constantly inside the club that they're like very scared to let Christensen leave the club in terms of him becoming another KDB situation, I'm amazed that we could be in a situation where Tomori basically leaves pretty cheaply in the end and, you know, not without much fuss, and we could have another situation there. I think this is one case where I am a bit concerned, because are you going to allow a player with this talent? Because I think behind Kurt Zouma and Thiago Silva in the first team squad, I do want to give some credit to Rudiger, because I think last night he performed well against Fulham. I also think that, this season he hasn't done a lot wrong, but especially Christensen, and especially that position there to get more minutes. I think it's staggering to me, Tomori, based on his own performances for Chelsea, just focusing in on his performances, I think have been pretty good. I think with the exception of a couple games last season, I've always been impressed by his composure on the ball, his willingness, his sort of alertness, his mobility. He looks like he can deal with the physicality of the Premier League that some of our defenders can't. It's just a bit confusing to me. Now, if Lampard sticks to his word, great, and we get a player who goes out on loan to AC Milan who could potentially win Serie A this year, and then they win that, he could be involved in that. That could be massive for his own career. Then he could return in the summer and we reassess things there. But Chelsea with Thiago Silva, he could be here again next season. Kurt Zouma's not exactly old. I think both Rudiger and Christensen could be off in the summer, which could help Tomori in the sense that he could become third choice, but he's getting into that age where he'll want to be in the first team a lot more. And if he goes to a place that does give him first team football, he may think, why return to a club that doesn't really want me? I think that's always something to think about as well. It's a big deal, I think, this, and I think that many people will just sort of assume it's an easy loan. I really hope that option to buy doesn't get used, and this isn't the last of Tomori, because it'd be such a shame to see another talented player leave the club prematurely. But that's the way it is. Let me know your opinions on this situation in the comments below. And wrapping up today's video by talking about last night's win, you can see my rational perspective is up, all my thoughts on it, the game itself. It wasn't exactly the most exhilarating performance. It was quite stressful in the end, but two players that were brilliant to see last night were Mason Mount, who scored the winner for Frank Lampard, and also Callum Hudson-Odoi. I think two players, and it just says so much about Lampard's reign that young players, once again, I even think Tammy Abraham falls into this category as well in terms of really bailing Lampard out. I want to reference sort of the West Brom game. If you think about earlier in the season where Chelsea were 3-0 down at half time, the three goal scorers that night were Mason Mount, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Tammy Abraham. I think it says so much about Lampard needing to trust these young players a lot more, because they're the ones at crucial moments, at really difficult moments, who are helping him, who are bailing him out at times. And considering what he did last season, I don't know if it's the fact that more pressure this year, bringing in a load of these new signings and having the pressure to play them. But last night, that wasn't exactly the case. I don't think that's a strong enough argument when I see Kai Havertz and Timo Werner on the bench. I don't think in the case of last night, those two players are stopping the likes of Callum Hudson-Odoi and Tammy playing. So he's stuck with a lot of players like Jorginho, Kovacic, especially Jorginho, who's been a bit of an outcast this season. Rudiger coming in for Kurt Zouma. So overall, I think that there needs to be more trust in these young players. And I think it's not only the fact that just allowing sort of the future of the club to thrive, but also just looking at the present with these players. They are impacting the team positively at the moment at a really difficult period for Frank Lampard. Just looking at the stats for Mason Mount, on top of scoring the key winner, he created 7 chances for Chelsea versus Fulham. No Chelsea player has created more in a Premier League away game across the past 5 seasons. Another sensational display. I remember a similar stat being talked about against Leeds, I think it was, in terms of creating as many chances in a game for like the past 5 seasons, and that's a typical thing for Mount. People talking about creatively not being a massive part of his game. If the stats just disprove you on that, he is someone that's creating chances at a rapid rate for Chelsea very consistently, and that's why he's in this team. Once again, as I went off last night about this, if you don't understand why Mount is in this team, not only looking at these just cold hard stats now, not only the fact that he's scoring key goals for us, not only the fact that he's key to our energy in the team, our natural energy, when he's not there, it drops significantly. Sort of his work rate, his mentality, constantly, you want him on that pitch. He's a bit of a leader to me. I mean, we're talking about a lack of leaders at Chelsea. I see one in Mason Mount, I do. But on top of that, from expected Chelsea, Premier League players with at least 40 key passes, 80 progressive passes and 80 passes into the final third this season. Look at that top 3: Kevin De Bruyne, Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount. Elite company is. And once again, it shows you what Mason Mount is doing, and it shows you, look at the age of Fernandes and De Bruyne, brilliant players in the Premier League at the moment, 26 and 29. Think about how long Mason Mount has got to go in his career. This is where he is right now. I want to see where he is at 25, 26. Another young player that impressed was star boy Callum Hudson-Odoi. Now, of course, he was only on the pitch for about 20 minutes when you think about it, but the influence he had was massive. And sort of finding the stats of his game here from London Football, which are really impressive. In those 20 minutes against Fulham, 92 pass accuracy, 2 out of 3 accurate long balls, 2 out of 2 ground draws, 1 key pass, 2 tackles, a game changer, must start going forward. His influence in the goal was key, taking responsibility ability at key moments. I felt everything he done last night had so much purpose, had so much aggressiveness to it as well. It seemed like a man on a mission to get on that pitch and prove his manager wrong, that he should have been starting, and he should have been starting. And Frank Lampard's comments after the game were interesting. This we had to say about Callum Hudson-Odoi. It was difficult to leave Callum out. There's been a real uplift in his form. That's a sign of his development. He is coming on, going by people and showing confidence. I'm delighted with how he is playing. He will get many minutes for us. Now, saying it was difficult to leave Callum out, I think it was wrong to leave Callum out, and I think it's a lesson Lampard needs to learn, especially at the moment when Chelsea aren't playing amazing football. We're struggling at the moment. Lampard needs to get us back in form going into the second half of the season. I think about that Leicester game on Tuesday, which isn't that long away. I think there's going to be a bit of rotation in that game. I think at least, and my team selector and preview will be out tomorrow, so please stay tuned for that. I think at least 3 or 4 players come into that side. I think about N'Golo Kante now, if he's fully fit, I think will likely start that game. You think about Reece James, who was basically saved despite being in matchday squad. Callum Hudson-Odoi, of course. You could even see Timo Werner come back into the side. Kai Havertz, could he play in midfield alongside Mason Mount? That's an interesting thing as well. So I think that Callum, for me, just needs to be playing. And it's for me, the statement he's making at the moment is so big. I think he's showing the quality of a player that is not just going to be a good youth player in the sense that you can bring him in for certain games and then he has to go out. He can be a serious player at the moment, and I think that Lampard needs to rely on him, because I look at Ziyech, who I don't think had the best game last night. In terms of that style of game, I wanted Ziyech to have much more input. I don't think he did. I think Pulisic, once again, really didn't impact the game. He's a player that should be making a lot more of a bigger statement at the moment, because he's got those fitness issues behind him now. He looks a lot more fit in terms of being on the pitch, getting those minutes week in, week out. I just think, once again, another player that I feel should have been doing more. I don't see the big reason why Callum should be out of the team. I understood it earlier in the season when we were going on that 17-game unbeaten run and we were winning games in the Champions League that Callum Hudson-Odoi started and scored in. But then, of course, in the Premier League, Ziyech was starring, Werner was scoring as well when we were winning those games in the Premier League. So it's very hard for any player and for any fan to have a go at Frank and say Callum should be playing the Premier League games ahead of Ziyech and Werner and Pulisic as well, because we were winning consistently. Not anymore. Callum needs to be starting. He just adds energy, directness, pace, but also just his quality on the ball. There was a few moments, and it was a shame that Timo Werner messed this up, because there was a moment on the break where Callum floated a ball with his right foot, curled it round the Fulham defence in the path of Timo, and if he would have got his pass right and his touch right, which has been horrendous recently, he would have been through on goal. And there were many moments like that where Callum, as the stats prove, once he gets into the final third, he's really clinical. He knows how to find the right man, and that's an issue that I think both Pulisic and Ziyech last night weren't doing as consistently. I think Frank got away with it in some of his selections last night in terms of playing Jorginho, playing Kovacic, not playing Callum Hudson-Odoi. Luckily, we got the result in the end, but the performance was definitely not convincing. Let me know your opinions on Callum. How big do you think he can be this season? Do you think from now on he's going to be a first-team player ahead of the likes of Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic? And what do you think Frank Lampard needs to do to get the best out of him? Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for this episode of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys as ever for watching it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great Sunday, and I'll see you again.